All right, well, it hasn't been the best couple of weeks for Fox News' Tucker Carlson. First, his top writer was fired for anonymously posting racist comments. Now Carlson is accused of sexual harassment by Fox employees. And at the same time, he started a fight with the New York Times, claiming they were about to publish his home address. Tucker Carlson took a break from his show last week, but when he returned, he made no mention of the sexual harassment suit that had just been filed. Instead, he accused the New York Times of trying to publicize his home address.
So why is the New York Times doing a story on the location of my family's house? Well, you know why. To hurt us, to injure my wife and kids so that I will shut up and stop disagreeing with them.
Carlson claims he was forced to sell his prior Washington, D.C. home because activists had harassed him, and that the Times had discovered his new address.
The New York Times followed us. The paper has assigned a political activist called Murray Carpenter to write a story about where we are now. They've hired a photographer called Tristan Spinsky to take pictures. So how would Murray Carpenter and his photographer Tristan Spinsky feel if we told you where they live?
Carlson didn't, but following his screed, surprise, surprise, Tristan Spinsky says someone tried to break into his home. And freelance reporter Murray Carpenter says he received thousands of emails threatening him and his family. Without revealing the nature of the story it was developing on Carlson, the Times released a statement that reads in part, New York Times does not plan to publish Tucker Carlson's residence, which Carlson was aware of before the broadcast tonight. According to Washington Post media critic Eric Wemple, the Times was doing a puffy feature on the small town in Maine where Carlson now hosts his show. Times editor Dean Baquet had this to say, and if he has any honor, and if Fox has any honor, they will admit they were wrong. Don't hold your breath. Yeah, I mean, this is outrageous. You know, these two, Carpenter and Spinsky, they're Maine people themselves. They do a lot of environmental reporting. They're low-key, not big-name New York Times reporters. Apparently, the concept, according to Eric Wemple, who works for the Washington Post, was this little town in Maine, Oxford, Maine, has been kind of like besieged because this big TV star has his TV studio there. And, he's kind of like a guy about town. But that was supposedly the concept, not to out where he lived. And the idea that he would escalate it to this point it's talk about it, cranks. That's what he has become one. He is one.
Didn't we do something a year ago or a couple of years ago about how every time there's some sort of scandal, usually sexual harassment related, a Fox host goes on sudden vacation, announces it on a show the day before? Here we are again. Yeah. But what really strikes me about this is in saying that a yet unpublished piece was going to disclose his address and complaining about it, Tucker Carlson then hypocritically did the very thing he was accusing the New York Times of even thinking of doing, which is silly. People have reported for months now that he's been reporting from Maine, that he's been doing a show from his summer home. This isn't new. This was a puffy feature, and there's something shiny that we're supposed to be looking at instead of the sexual harassment allegations and instead of anything else that's currently bubbling in the stew that's over there.
Yeah, Lylah, you used the right word. This is the shiny object right there. It was so when you're under attack, you turn around and attack somewhere else and to divert attention. I think what's ironic, almost humorous about all this is while he is complaining and blaming the New York Times and suggesting this is almost like a mafia threat where we know where you live, we know where your children go to school, that kind of idea. I think it was Vanity Fair turns around and does a big story about how he is selling his house in Washington, D.C. with a big description about what the house looks like, how lovely the backyard is, all of that, and buying a house down in Florida. So if anybody is putting information out there about Tucker Carlson's house, while Tucker Carlson is in Maine, by the way, it's not the New York Times. So this whole thing was a made-up, let's look somewhere else kind of a story.
Well, it definitely was made up, and it's extra disgusting to me because if you recall, whenever a couple of years ago when those people showed up at his house, they were identified as Antifa, but I'm not sure they were. But whoever they were, pretty much the entire journalistic community rallied around and said, oh, that is not what should be happening here. He got the support of everybody. So, come on. make up some stuff about the New York Times because you're unhappy that somebody has filed a sexual harassment suit against you, and also that your colleagues who are working with you, those of color, have been on the line with your bosses to say this is a cesspool, and the guy that was the head writer for Tucker Carlson was stirring the plumbing stick in the toilet. Really? Okay. So I find this just so disgusting on so many levels, but then again, that's Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, for a guy who likes to throw sharp elbows and has made a boatload of money doing so, Tucker Carlson's really quite the fragile little snowflake, isn't he? But keep in mind what's happening here. This is a textbook example of the Donald J. Trump playbook. You are constantly on the attack, especially when you're taking some incoming. Attack, attack, attack at all times. When you're attacking, invoke popular scapegoats. And, of course, the media's 1A when it comes to scapegoats. Deny responsibility. White supremacy? Moi? Not Tucker. That was this guy who was writing the dialogue he was mouthing. And, of course, at all times, lie. Lie when you wake up in the morning. Lie during breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and all snacks in between. Lie before you go to bed, and lie in your dreams. This is the MO, and he executed it flawlessly here, and his bosses are down for it.
Hey, Tom, why doesn't this border on libel, by the way, or slander?
What's that? Slander to the New York Times?
Yeah.
Well, I think if I was the reporters, again, who are, as far as we know, completely innocent of all this, I think they could at least come back. But the problem is going to be making the case that you aren't involved as a public figure. Yeah. And when you're a reporter, that almost immediately means that you're in the public sphere. So I don't think it can